All right, you guys, we're on chapter 3 and we're getting into the high adventure of this story. Chapter 3, The Beggar at the Table, kind of like my dog. Leaning on his stick and covered by his ragged cloak, Odysseus stood at the threshold of the palace that had been his home 20 years before. Soon the suitors began boisterously invading the hall. Invisible to the rude men, the goddess Athena appeared to Odysseus and whispered in his ear. "Go around the room and beg from each man," she said, "and you will learn who is good and who is evil." Odysseus followed her bidding and began hobbling from man to man, begging for food. Antinous, the leader of the suitors, took an immediate dislike to him. "What a loathsome creature you are," he said when Odysseus approached him. "How dare you try to take our dinner?" Odysseus looked at Antinous in the eye. "And what about you, sir?" he said. "Do you not feed yourself from another man's table?" Antinous picked up a stool and hurled it at Odysseus, striking him on the back. Odysseus took the blow silently and walked away. Telemachus struggled against his fierce desire to defend his father, for he knew he must not reveal the beggar's true identity. But when the servants told Penelope about the attack on the poor ragged man, she was furious. "I hope the god Apollo strikes Antinous dead," she said. "All my suitors are loathsome, but Antinous is the worst. Bring the stranger to me. Perhaps he has heard something about my husband. He seems like a man who has traveled far and has seen much." The servant hurried to relay the message to Odysseus. "Tell your queen that I will come to her after dark," said Odysseus, "and bring her news of her husband." While Odysseus waited for the day's end, the suitors filled the courtyard of the palace with loud singing and dancing. They quarreled and fought with one another. They shouted insults at Odysseus and threatened him. Finally, Telemachus could bear no more. "Are you mad?" he shouted. "Have evil spirits possessed you? Leave this palace at once." The suitors were amazed by the young man's boldness. But grumbling, they finally did as Telemachus commanded and took their leave. When all the suitors had left the palace, the goddess Athena made a sign to Odysseus. Odysseus went immediately to Telemachus. "We must now prepare for tomorrow's battle," he said. "We will remove the armor and the spears from the downstairs hall. If anyone asks you why we are doing this, say that you fear they are being damaged by the heat and smoke of the household fires." Holding a golden lamp, Athena, now invisible, led Odysseus and Telemachus through the downstairs hall. The lamp's soft glow shone upon the walls and the rafters, and with the help of Athena's light, father and son removed helmets, shields, and spears from the walls and carried them to an upstairs storeroom. Then Odysseus bid good night to Telemachus. "Go to bed, my son," he said gently. "Rest for tomorrow's battle. I must go now and speak with your mother." Chapter 4, The Night Before the Battle. Dark had descended, and the palace was quiet. Queen Penelope sat in her ivory and silver chair by the fire of the great hall. Her beauty shone like that of the golden goddess Aphrodite. By the way, Aphrodite was the goddess of beauty, so she must be very beautiful. "Please bring a bench so my guests will be comfortable," she said to her maids. A bench was brought and covered with soft sheepskin. Then a servant bid Odysseus to come before the queen. "Welcome, my friend," Penelope said. "Now please tell me, who are you? Where do you come from? Where is your family?" His face hidden by his ragged cloak, Odysseus spoke in a low voice. "Honorable wife of Odysseus, please do not ask me of my homeland or my family. Do not force me to remember my pain and grief." "I understand," said Penelope. "My own grief began 20 years ago when my husband left to fight the Trojan War. For many years now, men have come to court me. They have taken over our house. They tell me Odysseus is surely dead and demand that I choose one of them to marry. I tried to trick them for a while. I told them I would marry again when I finished weaving a shroud for Odysseus' father. I worked on the shroud every day, but every night I unraveled my day's weaving, so the work would never be done. But after 3 years of this trickery, a serving maid discovered my secret and told the suitors of my deceit. I had no choice but to finish my weaving. Now they demand that I keep my word and choose one of them for a husband. I know not what to do. My years of grief and worry have left me with no more strength to fight these men. Penelope sighed deeply. There, she said, I have told you of my family and my grief and my torment. So now speak to me about yourself. Where are you from? I know you were not born from a rock or a tree. Odysseus did not blink as he began to spin a tale for his wife. I lived on the island of Crete, he said. My grandfather was the great King Minos. I remember a time when your husband Odysseus was blown off course on his way to Troy, and he came to our island. I entertained him at the palace. He and his men stayed with us for 12 days, and then they put out to sea again. Hearing even this simple story of her lost husband made Penelope weep. Just as the snows melted by the east wind run down the mountainside, so did the tears run down her lovely cheeks. Odysseus longed to comfort his wife, but he forced himself to remain silent. When Penelope had spent her tears, she looked at Odysseus again. Stranger, how shall I know if you speak the truth? If you truly have seen my husband, tell me, what did he look like? How was he clothed? It has been 20 years, so my memory of Odysseus is weak, said Odysseus. But I will tell you how I remember him. He wore a thick purple cloak with a golden brooch. On the brooch was engraved a hound and a fawn. Odysseus' words made Penelope weep even harder than before. It was I who pinned that golden brooch to his purple cloak before he sailed away to war, she said through her sobs. Odysseus could bear Penelope's tears no longer. Please do not weep, my lady, he said. I have heard recently that Odysseus is alive, though all his men are dead. He will soon return home bearing great gifts. I believe he will come this very month, between the old moon and the new. I pray your words are true, said Penelope. If they come to pass, you will be greatly honored. The queen then called for her servants and told them to prepare a comfortable bed for the stranger. I have no need for a soft bed, Odysseus said. I have long slept on the hard ground. Then at least allow my servant Euryclea to bathe you, said Penelope. She cared for Odysseus from the day he was born until the day he sailed away to war. Odysseus smiled and agreed to a bath. He sat silently by the firelight as Penelope took her leave, and the old maid servant filled the water basin. As Euryclea began to bathe him, Odysseus remembered the scar above his knee. The scar was from a wound made by a boar's trunk when Odysseus was a young man. Before he could hide his leg, Euryclea saw the long white mark. The old woman slowly traced her finger over the scar. Then she looked up at Odysseus. Her eyes filled with tears. Oh, she whispered, you are Odysseus. Odysseus grabbed Euryclea and pulled her close to him. Woman, you must promise to tell no one who I am, he whispered fiercely, until the gods have delivered these evil suitors into my hands. I promise, Euryclea whispered. I shall be as silent as a stone. After his bath, Penelope came to Odysseus again. I fear the dark day has arrived, she said, and I must finally marry one of these wretched men, or my son will surely come to harm. So this is what I have decided to do. Long ago, my husband Odysseus could shoot a single arrow through the rings at the end of the 12 axe handles. Whoever among the suitors can string Odysseus' great bow and shoot with the same skill, he will I wed. Odysseus nodded slowly. I believe that is a good idea, he said. Let the contest be held tomorrow. Penelope smiled. "It is a great comfort to talk with you, my friend, but I must go to bed now. No mortal can go forever without sleep." Odysseus watched Penelope climb the stairs to her chamber. Then he spread an ox hide on the floor of the hall and lay down to sleep. But sleep would not come. Odysseus tossed restlessly, worrying about the upcoming fight. "I have suffered worse than this," he thought. "I saw my own men hideously murdered by the Cyclops monster, and still I endured. I journeyed to the land of the dead. I survived storms and shipwrecks and escaped cannibal giants." But no matter how he tried to reassure himself, Odysseus could not rest. "Odysseus!" Odysseus opened his eyes. The goddess Athena was standing over him. "Why can you not sleep?" she said. "Your wife is here. So is your son. You are finally home." "What you say is true," said Odysseus, "yet I wonder if I can rid my home of these shameless suitors. They are always together in a great crowd. Even if I kill them all, surely others will come and try to avenge their deaths." "Faithless mortal," said the gray-eyed goddess. "Have I ever ceased to watch over you? Can we not defeat an army of men together? Go to sleep. I promise you that with my help, you will prevail over your enemies." We will continue with chapter 5 and beyond later on.